This is the World Financial Report on Radio with Harold Siegel. My name is Randy Marshall. Joining us via the telephone, our financial endowment expert, Harold Siegel. We're taping our show on November the 10th, 2016. Our time right now is 8:45 Mountain. Normally we tape on Friday morning, but it's Remembrance Day here in Canada, November the 11th, and in the United States. To our American friends who listen to us online, it is Veterans Day. And here in Canada, we remember those that served Canada in a military capacity and those that continued to serve. We remember on Remembrance Day, November the 11th. Don't forget, if you ever miss a radio show, they are archived on Harold's two websites, HESradio.com, rarecoloreddiamonds.com. We're heard Sundays at 3 on 630 CHED. We have a podcast through iTunes. Type in The World Financial Report on Radio. You'll find us there. We're on Harold's websites, the podcast. We can't forget about TuneIn. Also, we have our own YouTube page, and 630 CHED is on Apple Music as well. So we are everywhere you go. You can listen to the radio show at your convenience if you miss us on 630 CHED. Connect with Harold, rarecoloreddiamonds.com. rarecoloreddiamonds.com, 1-800-432-1022. Our featured diamond of the week is a .81 carat emerald cut, fancy, vivid, purplish pink. We'll talk about pink diamonds coming up in the second half of the show. What a week it was. We talked about it last week. We were waiting for the big U.S. election. Now at about 5 o'clock Eastern Time, behind the scenes, the television networks were getting updates of exit polls. The exit polls were showing that Hillary Clinton was going to win, and win fairly easily. That happened back when George W. Bush went up against John Kerry. The early exit polls were showing John Kerry was going to beat George Bush. Well, as the night went along, and Donald Trump picked up Florida, North Carolina, and Ohio, and was leading in Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania, the realism of the situation changed for a lot of the networks. And it has been interesting to see the networks go, how did we get it so wrong? We thought Hillary was going to win. The poll numbers were wrong. We were wrong. There were polling numbers out there that were quite good. The Los Angeles Times, they actually asked the same people over and over again who they wanted as president of the United States instead of asking a different group of people. Harold, what a crazy night it was. And now the question is, how do we make money? Obviously, we have Prime Minister Trudeau as our Prime Minister here in Canada. How do we make money with a Trump presidency and a Prime Minister Trudeau? Trudeau and Trump in power in North America. What do we do to make money over the next 4 years?
Well, it's not easy. Let me put it that way. But all in all, it was a very exciting election. You know, in a lot of cases, people were not voting for Trump. They were voting against Hillary. She was not very popular. Most people considered her a liar, a thief, a cheat, everything like that. And Donald was a loose cannon, obviously, and a big mouth and a bragger. But, you know, the fact is that the money followed Donald Trump. And the fact is that where a lot of people didn't want to admit that they were voting for him, they did. And Florida was probably the most important, because once he won Florida and North Carolina, he couldn't have won if he didn't have Florida and North Carolina, but just did an amazing job, let's face it. He was a tireless worker. He did phenomenal. He, you know, won at a time when nobody in the world thought that he could have. And all the other Republicans that dissed him during the campaign and tried to separate from him because they felt that he was, again, a loose cannon and not, you know, going to win this thing, boy, are they ever eating crow at this point. So there's a lot of people that are going to have to make up with Donald Trump, because he's going to be a dynamic president. I think he's going to do an amazing job. You know, during the entire election process, you know, when the election was going on, I was watching the markets, And when it looked like Donald was starting to gain ground, all of a sudden, the U.S. dollar started to fall and gold went up $60. The stock market, the U.S. market, was scheduled to open 800 points lower. 800 points lower in the Dow, $60 higher in gold, and the U.S. dollar was down substantially. However, once we started to digest, what was really going to happen with Trump as a president, all of a sudden things started to make an awful lot more sense. And instead of the market opening down 800 points on the Dow on Wednesday morning, it actually opened up substantially higher. So instead of opening down 800 points, the Dow opened up 300 points higher and actually is sitting today at the highest point that it's ever been at. On top of that, gold that was up $60 all of a sudden started to fall, and the market had broken, well above the 1,300 level. And now, as we're taping the show, gold's down $10 on the day. It certainly didn't open $60 higher. It opened $30 higher. And during the course of the day, gold started to sell off, and the U.S. dollar started to gain strength again. So we're enthused about this. We're enthused about this because, from a trader's aspect, and again, putting my clients in the right position to make money, we're perfectly situated right now. We're situated in the U.S. dollar going up and the Canadian dollar dropping. And that's exactly what's happening at this particular point. Right now, as we're speaking, the U.S. dollar has broken 99 cents. I would bet that we are going to see a increase in interest rates in the United States. The U.S. is the only country in the world that could actually raise interest rates, and they're going to do it, which is going to strengthen the U.S. dollar even further. The U.S. dollar very soon is going to break par, and it's going to go to the 108 to 110 level. This is one of the most phenomenal opportunities that we've seen to make money in the currency market. Now, again, at this particular point, you want to be in U.S.-based dollar-based investments and out of Canadian dollar-based investments. As we're doing the show on Thursday, the Canadian dollar is trading at 135 and the U.S. dollar is trading right at 99 cents. My guess is, and I'm pretty strong on this, that we're going to see the Canadian dollar fall substantially to the 160 to 170 level, and the U.S. dollar is going to break 110. That means that my clients will make about a 50% return on the currency alone, let alone what we're making on our private investments. So if you've been sitting on the sidelines waiting to see what's going to happen with the elections and watching everything pass you by, that's a major mistake right now. We've called this market exactly correctly. We've called the gold market down. And when everybody else was saying the gold's going to 1,100 short term, we said the gold's going to go to 1,100. And we're right about that. Gold is dropping as we speak. We said the Canadian dollar is going to drop substantially along with the price of oil, and that's happening right in front of our very eyes. And the strongest currency in the world is going to be the U.S. dollar. And at this particular point, I'm very strongly recommending that we get out of Canadian dollar-based investments and give me a call, and I'll show you how to make money in the U.S. dollar and get into some of our private investments that are not only based in U.S. dollars, which is making our clients a fortune, but on top of that, our investments are returning 25% a year. So at this particular point, here's what we feel is going to happen. At this time, we continue to see that the Canadian dollar is going to fall, which is why you want to sell your Canadian dollars, get out of your retirement savings plans, because you're not going to make any money in those. In actual fact, 90% of people that are in retirement savings plans in Canada are losing, and that's over a 10-year period. And with the markets as crazy as they are, and again, my prediction that the Canadian dollar will fall substantially, you don't want to have all of your money sitting in Canadian dollars at this point. Let me show you how to make money in the currency and in some of our private investments that pay in U.S. dollars. We also see the oil market falling. I see the oil market falling substantially. It did hit a high recently within the last month. Crude oil was trading at about $53, $54. It's now down to $44 and change. As oil goes lower, that hurts the Canadian economy and will ultimately hurt the Canadian dollar. The fact is that the Canadian dollar will not go higher because they're cutting interest rates in Canada, which is why most Canadians will never get a chance to retire unless you've got a ton of money sitting in the bank at this point. With interest rates basically at 0.5%, what are your chances of ever retiring? You know, if you've been successful in your life, and let's say, for example, you put away $2 million. You put away $2 million and you're making 10% return on your money, you're making $200,000 a year. You could live beautifully off of that kind of money, but unfortunately, you're not making 10% on it. You're making 0.5%. You got $2 million sitting in the bank. At 10%, you're making $200,000. At 1%, you're making $20,000. At 0.5%, you're making $10,000 a year return on a $2 million investment by keeping your money sitting in the bank. And then when you consider your taxes and you consider inflation, you're literally losing money keeping your money in the bank. On top of that, the Canadian government a couple months ago approved Bill C-15, and if you look up bail-ins, you're going to now realize that the Canadian-owned banks that are owned by the Canadian government, the Canadian government is not going to back up the banks if they go under. You're responsible for that. That means that if you've got more than $100,000 sitting in the bank, let's say you got $500,000 sitting in the bank, you're only insured up to $100,000. If that bank goes under, the bank is allowed to take your money, the $400,000 that is sitting above your insurance on that account, they could take and give you worthless shares in that bank. You need to be aware of what's going on, because with the real estate problems in Canada, the oil problems in Canada, and with the weak Canadian dollar, we're in trouble. And we can't just sit there and let this happen. You've got Trudeau in power at this point, and I'll just tell you a little story that 35 years ago, his father was in power, and I was living in Toronto as a 28-year-old. And at that point there, I owned a small business, and Pierre Trudeau led the country into the worst mail strike that the country has ever seen. And where people were dying in business because this mail strike was so prolonged, Trudeau had the guts to say that any company that totally relies on the mail shouldn't be in business. Well, at that point there, my little business went under because it was totally reliant on the mail, as are most businesses, and I left Canada with $20 in my pocket, and a one-way bus ticket down to Florida. And I've been here for 35 years now, and have been very fortunate to build a wonderful business and a wonderful life, but very, very proud to be Canadian. Always consider myself Canadian, but again, there's certain things that are happening in the country at this particular point that make things extremely difficult. And with a weak Canadian dollar and the Canadian dollar going lower and lower, if we just sit there like a deer with, in the headlights type of thing, we're just never going to get ahead. We have opportunities to make money for our clients, and they're all based in U.S. dollars, but you need to give me a call so we can discuss it. Don't just sit there and lose your money every single day and just, let the markets do their thing. There's other alternative investments that you could do that can make you whole in the marketplace, and one of them is getting into the U.S. dollar-based investments, which I could definitely help you with. So, again, at this point, it shocked everybody, Randy. First of all, Donald Trump winning. At this point here, the markets totally, and I mean totally, reversed from where they were when he started to win Florida and North Carolina and Ohio and Michigan. All of a sudden, gold that was up $60 at this point absolutely started to fall, and so did the Canadian dollar when the U.S. dollar started to go right back up after the election. So, again, it was a crazy time, but at this point we're starting to see that the United States is starting to get excited about the potential of not having a politician, but having an actual businessman run the country, and I personally believe that's a phenomenal thing. I think we're going to make an awful lot of money.
Connect with Harold. There are special programs that he has in place where you can start making money right now. Find out more. Connect with him, rarecoloreddiamonds.com, rarecoloreddiamonds.com, 1-800-432-1022. Our featured diamond of the week is a .81 carat emerald cut fancy vivid purplish pink. Later in the show, we'll talk about the Argyle pink tender. The results are in, and it was a very positive year. A lot of people are wondering, how did Donald Trump win? Well, it's interesting to note that Jamie Dimon, who is the head of J.P. Morgan, wrote a report, and he said the U.S., Europe, and other countries must heed voices of frustration. Trump's surprise victory in the United States and the UK's vote to leave the European Union reflect frustration with a lack of economic opportunity, and that should not be ignored. That, according to Jamie Dimon, he says, we're going through a period of profound political and economic change around the world, and American citizens showed that despite desire for change in voting to elect Trump as the 45th president of the United States, that obviously there are some serious concerns that people have. We need to listen to those voices. And he called for collaboration between public and private stakeholders, a frequent theme in his public remarks. Last month, he was one of the few Wall Street leaders to indicate a presidential preference when he said he hoped that she would reach across the aisle. And that memo came out on Wednesday. Leaders from across the public, private, and nonprofit sectors need to collaborate to find meaningful solutions to help create economic growth and greater opportunity for all. And I think that's one of the things that happened as a result of the financial crisis. We saw that, obviously, Wall Street got their massive bailout. Corporations were able to use cheap money because of the Fed lowering interest rates practically to zero. That worked in their favor. And what happened to the little guy, the person on Main Street? They lost their home. They lost their job in a lot of cases. And even though we've seen a lot of jobs gained in the United States, a lot of those jobs are part-time. They don't pay what most people were originally making. So you have a situation where there were a lot of people hurting, and Donald Trump tapped into that. Make America great again. Some people felt that was a slogan that said, well, turn back the clock to the 50s or something. But I think what it meant for a lot of people is, I want my opportunity. And they were seeing Wall Street make out like bandits. They were seeing corporations and CEOs make out like bandits. And they wanted some massive change. And that's what we saw on Tuesday night with Donald Trump elected president of the United States. And the question is now, how do we make money in the environment that we're in? We have Prime Minister Trudeau in Canada, soon to be President Trump in the United States. And as Harold has mapped out for us, a road map of making money in these economic times, and that is shifting money from Canadian dollars into U.S. dollars. We had that quote about a month or two ago from Jared Dillian, who believes that the Canadian dollar will go down substantially. The U.S. dollar will go up. And obviously you want to be in U.S. assets, take advantage of the currency swing, and be in an investment that is priced in U.S. dollars that can appreciate as well. Harold has those, and if you'd like to find out more, connect with him, 1-800-432-1022, 1-800-432-1022. One of the other things that was interesting, Harold, we've talked about a cashless society, and there were two stories that came out during the week. Cash is still king for Americans. Americans still love cash more than debit and credit cards or checks. Despite the growing world of credit cards, PayPal and other on-demand economy in cash is still king, according to a new report by the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco's Cash Product Office. Cash was used in 32% of all transactions last year, the highest of any payment method. Spenders using debit cards, 27% of purchases, and credit cards were used 21% of the time. There were about 150 billion transactions last year, according to a separate study by the Federal Reserve and the census figures. But it's interesting to note that millennials, those aged 18 to 24, use cash in 38% of their payments, which is quite interesting. And they go on to add that for payments of $10 or less, Americans use cash 66% of the time. Now, the Fed obviously did the report in the past and they found that cash was used about in 40% of the transactions back in 2012. Now it's 32%, so obviously that is changing. Cash is also still king in Japan, and that could be a problem for the Bank of Japan. As anyone who has visited Japan knows, cash is still king, even though many places now take credit cards, Apple Pay, and other forms of cashless technology. The actual amounts of notes and coins circulated in the country have doubled in 20 years, and that's while the economy and population has shrunk. More than 101 trillion yen, 966 billion of cash, was circulating at the end of October. It was used for more than 80% of transactions by value in 2014. And it's interesting to note, because they have negative interest rates in Japan, a lot of people have taken money out of the bank, gone out, got their own safe, put their money in that safe. Money is basically leaving the banking system, people putting it in mattresses because they do not want it to be held in the banking system where they have to pay because of negative interest rates. And one of the other things that I thought was quite interesting, in India, they scrapped this week 2 large rupee notes in a shocking anti-corruption move. India has discontinued its 2 largest rupee notes, and they say 500 and 1,000 rupees will be invalid starting midnight local time earlier in the week. They say that is a result of crime and corruption, and they're trying to get those large notes out of the system. Harold, with about a minute left, we know in Sweden they're moving towards a cashless society, but cashless society, with a minute left here, is something we need to keep an eye on.
You better believe it. A cashless society, they're trying it out in parts of Europe and parts of around the world, but again, it's going to be a difficult transition. It's going to take about 8 to 10 years for that to happen, but it is going to happen. There's no doubt in my mind it's going to happen because the elitists want it to happen. And this has been something that they've been working on for a long, long time. So, when you have companies like Google and Apple, they will have Google Pay and Apple Pay, and, the young people are already used to paying everything that way. So there's no doubt that transition is going to happen, but it's not going to happen, today type of thing. We still have a few years till it's going to be, here in the United States type of thing.
If you'd like to learn more about cashless society, what that means to all of us, obviously Bill C-15, which was released in Canada here in June and passed, and how bail-ins are happening in Canada, find out more. Speak with Harold. Connect with him at 1-800-432-1022, 1-800-432-1022. His website is rarecoloreddiamonds.com. Featured diamond of the week is a .81 carat emerald cut, fancy, vivid, purplish pink. And if you want to learn how to make money in the Trump presidency, Trudeau prime ministership, then give Harold a call, 1-800-432-1022. We're going to come back and talk about diamonds. As the World Financial Report on Radio with Harold Siegel and me, Randy Marshall, continues right after this. Welcome back to the World Financial Report on Radio with Harold Siegel. My name is Randy Marshall. Joining us via the telephone, our financial and diamond expert, Harold Siegel. We're taping our show on November the 10th, 2016. Our time right now is 9:09 Mountain. Our radio show runs on 6:30 CHED, Sunday afternoon at 3, and due to Oilers hockey or Eskimos football, we move around a little bit on Sundays. We were on earlier last week, but back on our normal time. If you ever miss a radio show, they're archived on Harold's 2 websites, HESradio.com, rarecoloreddiamonds.com. We have a podcast through iTunes. Type in The World Financial Report on Radio. We're portable. We go on your portable device anywhere you do. We're also on YouTube and TuneIn. And 630 CHED is now on Apple Music. So that is very exciting. You can listen to us on Apple Music. Connect with us, rarecoloreddiamonds.com, rarecoloreddiamonds.com, or 1-800-432-1022, 1-800-432-1022. And obviously Remembrance Day on Friday, November 11. And we do remember those that have served in the Canadian military, past and present. We thank you for your service. And in the United States, those that listen to our radio show, it is Veterans Day on Friday and we salute their veterans as well. But we do remember here in Canada, and we wear our poppies very, very proudly. Our featured diamond of the week from rarecoloreddiamonds.com, and it is an absolute beauty. When it comes to diamonds, we had a very special diamond last week, and a lot of people were calling about it. No surprise. It was one of the most beautiful diamonds we've ever had. This week, it's a 0.81 carat emerald cut fancy, vivid, purplish pink, and it is absolutely gorgeous. Harold, good news. Rio Tinto sees record prices for its diamond tender. Rio Tinto reports that the annual Argyle Pink Diamond tender was a huge success, with this year's tender achieving the highest average prices per carat since its inception in 1984. Rio Tinto's Argyle mine produces virtually the entire world's supply of rare pink diamonds, 90 to 95%, with the finest from a full year's production showcased in their annual Argyle Pink Diamonds tender. The 2016 tender comprised a collection of 63 rare pink, red, and violet diamonds from the Argyle mine named the Chroma Collection. And Rio Tinto reports that the diamonds were all of the highest quality, size, and color. The composition in the tender's 32-year history, this was one of the best. They were highly sought after, with winners from 10 countries, including a strong representation from the U.S. collector market, which is not a surprise. The centerpiece of the collection is the 2.83 carat oval diamond named the Argyle Violet, the largest and most valuable violet diamond recovered to date from the Argyle mine, and that was reportedly sold to U.S.-based colored diamond specialist J.L. West Diamonds, which plans to showcase the historic diamond at the Diamonds Rare Brilliance exhibit at the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles County in December 2016. And Rio Tinto notes that over the past 15 years, the value of Argyle pink diamonds sold at tender have appreciated over 300%. Argyle Pink Diamonds manager Josephine Johnson says the market fundamentals for pink diamonds, strong demand as a result of extremely limited supply, continue to support their significant value appreciation. Harold, for all the people listening to our radio program who have invested in pink diamonds, Argyle or otherwise, obviously, once again, very exciting news. Rio Tinto saying record prices yet again for their tender this year.
You bet. That was very, very exciting. In actual fact, the prices are going so high that it's knocking a lot of the dealers out of the mix type of thing. But it's great to see. Again, we knew that this was going to happen because, let's face it, it's economics 101. When demand is high and supplies are low, the prices go higher. And in this case, we have the only diamond mine in the world, really, that produces any supply of pink diamonds at all. And by the way, it's not a lot. They had 55 diamonds over a half a carat at the Argyle tender this year. So you're not talking about a large diamond, you're talking about a small diamond. However, Argyle pink diamonds are known as the most concentrated form of wealth on earth. A 1 carat vivid pink Argyle diamond could be worth $1 million or more, depending on the cut and how saturated the color is and all that. And you're talking about a diamond that's about the size of your baby fingernail. So this mine, the Argyle mine, produces 95% of the pink diamonds in the world. They also have the Argyle tender, which is the biggest event in all of diamonds every single year. But the thing is that the Argyle mine, which has been in business since 1986, is now closing because they're not producing enough diamonds in order to keep the mine profitable. So where they produce a large amount of diamonds out of this mine, they're mostly low-grade industrial white diamond. Only a handful of diamonds comes out that are actually pink, and these are investment quality diamonds. Almost every other diamond that comes out of the Argyle mine is not considered an investment quality diamond, but these pinks are just off the charts. And if you take the whole year supply for the Argyle tender and put it into a champagne glass, it won't even fill the glass. That's how small this market is. But again, that does represent 95% of all the pink diamonds that come out of the world. So, the featured diamond this week is extremely, extremely rare. Where 95% of the pink diamonds that come out of the Argyle mine are under a quarter carat, this one is over 3/4 of a carat. It's a .81. On top of that, once this diamond was cut, it could have been cut in a radiant cut or a cushion cut or whatever, but it's cut in an actual emerald cut, one of the rarest of all cuts. It's also known as a step cut because there's different levels to the diamond. And then the color of the diamond is extraordinary. It's not just a fancy pink. It's the highest saturated color of all. It is a vivid pink. So you take this particular diamond, it's 3 times the size of a normal Argyle. The cut on the diamond is one of the rarest of all cuts, and the color is the best that you could possibly get. This is an investment quality diamond that if it was put away for the next 10 years would outperform any asset that you own today. That's how rare and valuable these diamonds are. And the fact is that once this mine closes, which is going to happen within the next 3 years, and you put these diamonds away till all the pink diamonds are gone, you're talking about an asset that can go up more than any asset you could ever imagine. For example, my wife's girlfriend inherited a 5-carat pink diamond from her grandmother. Her grandmother bought it 50 years ago for $50,000, and today that diamond is worth $5 million. So, what I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the show, that if you have money sitting in a retirement savings plan, you're wasting your time because the chances of you making money in a retirement savings plan today is slim to next to none. And all you have to do is look at the returns over the last 10 years, and you realize what I'm saying is correct. But you take a diamond like this one that's the featured diamond and put that away for 10 or 20 years, you're talking about a diamond, an asset that will skyrocket in price, way better than stock, along with the fact it's portable private wealth. It never declines in value. It only goes up in value. And when you look at an investment, that's the most important thing that I look at, is the first thing is capital preservation. How likely is it that that investment is going to retain its value? In the case of an Argyle pink diamond, that's a given. You're not going to be able to get them anymore, so it's an asset that will not decline in value. But then, over time, when there's no more of these diamonds available, you're talking about capital appreciation, an asset that will go up substantially in value. So, to me, it's the perfect investment. It's not paper, so you own it outright. We ship it directly to you. It's portable private wealth. You could trade, you could travel with it. As a result of the elections, there were people that were so upset by the outcome of Trump winning that they were saying that they were going to leave the country. Some going to go to Canada, some going to go to the Caribbean, some going to go to Mexico, wherever, but they were leaving. Do you realize that, just a statement like that, if you wanted to leave a country, give up your passport and expatriate yourself, you're talking about you can't go across the border with more than $5,000 in cash. You can't take your stocks or gold or that with you. But a colored diamond, number one, is portable, transferable wealth. If you own that diamond, you could cross any border, and that diamond could be worth $10 million, and there's no issue with it. If you're going to come back into the country, you better have that diamond with you. But the fact is, if you're leaving the country, you've got an asset that could be worth millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, depending on your net worth, and you could travel with that asset. It's like no other asset in the world today. And again, judging by what happened in the U.S. this week, there's a lot of people that are very, very upset and disappointed. There's a lot of people that consider Donald Trump a pig and a bully and uncouth and everything that he said. But the fact is, he won fair and square. He's a billionaire. He's a very smart man, and the chances are that he's going to make an excellent president. But the fact is, there's a lot of people that are very upset. There are people that are rioting all over the United States because things didn't go the way that they anticipated. There was bookmakers in England that were laying odds that long before the election that Hillary was going to win. In fact, some of them, stupidly, paid out in advance. I don't know why they would have ever done that, because they'll have no chance of collecting the money back. But the bottom line is the fact is that we're going to see a lot of change. And what I believe is going to happen is the U.S. dollar is going to be the strongest currency. And if that's the case, then we might as well be in that asset, because we need to make money. With interest rates at 0.5% and going negative, there's no way in the world you're going to make money. By keeping your money in the bank, you're going to have to pay the bank every month interest. Instead of them paying you interest, you're going to have to pay them. That's no way for us to live. That's no way for us to ever consider retiring. And again, unless you look at alternative assets that are outside of the stock and the banking system, you're never going to get ahead. And I can help you. I've been very, very successful over my career at deciphering which way a market's going to go, picking trends in the markets. We were the only ones that picked gold to go from $250 to almost $2,000. We have clients that became multi-millionaires because of what happened in the gold and silver market. The same thing will happen with diamonds, and the same is going to happen with our private investments. So my strongest recommendation right now, because we're so bullish on the U.S. dollar, that we need to get out of Canadian dollars like now and get into the U.S. dollar-based investments that I can help you with. And not only will you make a huge return on the currency, but you'll make a 25% return or more on our private investments. And they're available for our Canadian clients only. So, again, Randy, I was concerned at first because last week when it looked like Trump had no chance of winning, at that point, the markets were not looking very good. But the fact is that once you look deeper into what he brings to the table, the U.S. dollar is going to be a tremendous currency again. It already is. It's up substantially today. So my suggestion is to give me a call so I can explain to you how in the world we get out of the Canadian and into a phenomenal situation. And we're now down $15 in the gold market today as the U.S. dollar is going up substantially and the Canadian is now down to 135 and soon going to go to the 150 to 170 level. Let me show you how to make money on that type of scenario.
Speak with Harold personally, privately, 1-800-432-1022, 1-800-432-1022. RareColoredDiamonds.com is the website, and it's interesting. They're reporting, Bloomberg, one of the first places the new administration's weight might be felt is at the Federal Reserve, where they had been expected by the vast majority of investors to hike rates at its December meeting. After initially falling to below 50%, the market implied odds of a hike are now back over 80%. And PIMCO warns that should Trump's policies prove inflationary, there may be a need for more rate rises over the medium term than had been previously forecast. Meanwhile, Goldman Sachs says they are having the rate rise at about 60%. But if the Canadian dollar obviously continues to go down, which we believe it will, the United States continues to raise rates, Canadian dollar will go down if we stay static or if we even lower rates, depending on how our economy is going. You can see the U.S. dollar going up, Canadian dollar going down. How do you make money in that scenario? Speak with Harold personally and privately. 1-800-432-1022, 1-800-432-1022. Our featured diamond of the week is a 0.81 carat emerald cut, fancy, vivid, purplish pink. And you can see it online at rarecoloreddiamonds.com, featured diamond. Get our story this week in our free weekly newsletter. If you don't get our free weekly newsletter, get it from Harold. We send it out via email free of charge every week. We have that story on Rio Tinto as well. Next week is going to be a biggie. And the reason I say that is on two fronts. The world's largest pair of pear-shaped diamonds could fetch up to $30 million. A newly created set of drop earrings featuring the world's largest pair of pear-shaped diamonds is expected to fetch up to $30 million when they go under the hammer at Geneva, November the 15th, next week. The flawless quality rocks weigh 52.55 and 50.47 carats. as well. There's a rare, fancy, vivid pink pear-shaped diamond ring. The estimate on that is 16 to 18 million. Now that is the 15th. That is Christie's. Sotheby's. They have on the 16th a noble jewel sale in Geneva. And some of the diamonds that are going to be featured, and this one is a blue diamond we will keep an eye on because it has been the year of the blue, as we know. The sky blue diamond, a fancy vivid blue diamond ring from Cartier, set with a square-cut fancy vivid blue diamond, and the estimate on it is $15 to $25 million. Also, a brilliant, fancy, intense pink diamond ring. The estimate on that is $12 to $15 million. An intense pink diamond ring, pear-shaped, fancy, intense pink diamond. The estimate on it, $9 to $14 million. A magnificent deep blue diamond ring set with an oval, fancy, deep blue diamond between shield-shaped diamond shoulders. The estimate on that, $9 to $14 million. And finally, a fancy light pink diamond ring set with a pear-shaped fancy light blue diamond. The estimate on that, $6 to $10 million. So next week, we have those, and they're just an absolute gorgeous pair of earrings. And we had a picture of those in last week's free weekly newsletter on the 15th with Christie's, Sotheby's, with that sky blue diamond on the 16th. Harold, you factor that into the Argyle pink diamond tender that has come back. Very exciting time for colored diamonds again. We had a great 6 months of the year with auctions. Blues were the stars, and it will continue to be, I suspect, the case with that sky blue diamond. It would not surprise me at all if it goes for $25 million or more at auction next week.
There's no doubt, excuse me, in my mind either. Blues have just been absolutely the best investments that anybody could have made. I mean, the prices that we've seen for blue diamonds over the past couple of years have been astronomical. And the fact is that they keep going higher and higher and higher. I don't even want to sell any of our vivid blue diamonds because every time that there's an auction, the prices are going ballistic. 10 years ago, you could have bought a vivid blue diamond for around $200,000 a carat. Now they're over $4 million a carat. So the returns have been astronomical. They will continue to be because, again, there's very few good investments in the world today that are not risky. The stock markets are extremely risky. 90% of the people that trade stocks lose their money. 90% of people that trade commodities lose their money. But that's not the case in private assets like diamonds, like classic cars, like certain art pieces, and those type of assets that have intrinsic value to them. So, again, it's a different world right now. If you're in a retirement savings plan, you've got no shot of making money in an RSP. The stock markets just aren't the same as they were 10 years ago. So if you're a neophyte when it comes to that and you're turning your financial accounts over to, supposed experts, nobody's making money in those markets. So if it's not working for you, you need to look at something else. And again, I've always been on the opposite side. I'm not one to trade stocks, not a believer in the stock market at this particular point, especially with what happened in 1999. The amount of skullduggery that goes on in that market and manipulation just doesn't warrant my type of investment. I'm much more conservative. However, my clients do extremely well. We're in alternative assets. Because my clients have been with me for such a long period of time, I've allowed my clients to partner with us in certain deals that we go into. In private deals where we buy rough, uncut diamonds and turn them into tremendous, beautiful diamonds. So, again, if that's of interest to you, my clients are getting paid in U.S. dollars and making way more than anybody is making in the market, and we're not taking any unnecessary risk. If that's interesting to you, pick up the phone and give me a call, and I speak to every person that calls. So please, if you're interested in making money and you want to get out of Canadian and into U.S. dollars, which you should be doing, you need to call me immediately.
1-800-432-1022. 1-800-432-1022. The website is rarecoloreddiamonds.com. rarecoloreddiamonds.com, 1-800-432-1022. And our featured diamond of the week, it is an absolute beauty. You can see it online at rarecoloreddiamonds.com. Featured diamond of the week is a 0.81 carat emerald cut, fancy, vivid, purplish pink. And one thing I wanted to mention to you was last week's featured diamond. We're very proud of this week's featured diamond, but what we had last week was simply off the charts. And so many people called Harold inquiring about it. And if you would like to as well, it's a 0.68 carat radiant cut, fancy green blue. Harold will be happy to send you a picture of this diamond. The color on it is one of the most spectacular colors you will ever see in a diamond. It is simply amazing. When I saw it for the very first time, I just literally flipped. I thought it was one of the most beautiful diamonds we have ever featured. So keep that diamond in mind as well. 0.68 carat radiant cut, fancy green blue. Speak with Harold about that diamond, 1-800-432-1022. And obviously we have Prime Minister Trudeau here in Canada. He's been in power about a year, so he has potentially 3, 4 more, 5 years to go. And in total, they can push it to about 5, but usually they go to about 4. So Trudeau's in power in Canada, and we have now President-elect Trump in the United States. And the big question is, how do you make money in this environment? And that's where Harold comes in. That's where our radio show comes in. Listen to our radio show on a weekly basis. Get our free weekly newsletter. We will keep you up to date with money-making ideas as to how you can obviously profit and protect the money that you make. You work so hard for it on a daily and weekly basis, monthly basis, yearly. It's so important now more than ever in the environment that we're in, that we're maximizing the opportunities that we have to make money as we get closer to retirement. And Harold has plenty of ideas. You can speak with him at 1-800-432-1022 or rarecoloreddiamonds.com. It's very hard to retire in the financial world we find ourselves in today. Everyone is worried about retirement money due to maybe another financial crash, or will I ever be able to retire? Central banks have manipulated interest rates low, stocks, bonds, and real estate at historical, obviously, overvaluations, and we could face a major correction at any time. In Canada, we have C-15, bank bail-ins, negative interest rates around the world, a weak Canadian dollar, also oil prices concerning, housing market in Vancouver and Toronto, cashless society, so many questions. And that's why we do this radio show, to give you the answers. And if you want the answers, speak with Harold. Everything discussed is 100% confidential. 1-800-432-1022, 1-800-432-1022, rarecoloreddiamonds.com is the website. And Harold, we have about a minute left, and I know you've got lots of ideas for us to make money during a Trump presidency.
You bet. Again, I know Donald Trump. I played golf with him. We sit on the same board for the Susan G. Komen breast cancer charity. A lot of faith in him. He may be a bully, he may be a braggart, but he is who he is, and he's turned $1 million investment from his father into becoming a billionaire. So you got to give the guy his due and let him have his chance. I personally I think he's going to do a great job. I'm excited about it. I think the U.S. dollar is going to go up tremendously. I think we're going to see a rise in interest rates coming soon, and you need to call me as soon as you can. Otherwise, you're going to miss one of the best opportunities to put yourself in an opportunity to make an awful lot of money. I'm very excited about this.
Thank you very much, Harold Siegel, for another great show and your knowledge.
It's my pleasure, Randy. I wish everybody a wonderful weekend and a very profitable day, and have a great Remembrance Day. Again, we certainly treasure our relationship with the military.
Yes, we do. And if you don't have a poppy, go out and pick one up. Connect with Harold, 1-800-432-1022 or rarecoloreddiamonds.com. That's it, another edition of the World Financial Report on Radio with Harold Siegel and me, Randy Marshall. We will talk to you next week.